afternoon. I do have something witty to say. I saw Harlock posted, "Let's do it," and so I was telling Darth back in the green room, if Harlock says it's time to go, it's time to go, baby.
Yep.
So here we are, 5:30 Eastern, MLB Live Lock Show. You got my boy Darth with us and Chapadong here. And Darth, what's up, buddy? How you been?
I've been all right. How about you?
Been okay. Was telling you guys yesterday the bachelorette party was this weekend, and that was interesting. But everybody heard that story, so we're all caught up on me. What'd you do this weekend?
Not a whole lot. It's summer vacation. The days are running all together. I forgot what day it was until just a little bit ago.
Yeah, Tuesday.
So, yep, Tuesday.
I'm here for you, buddy. I'm a team player. Well, we got actually got an interesting show as people pile in for the early birds. Obviously, we're going to do normal rundown stuff, but Darth, you were talking with a member with Juggernaut, and if Juggernaut's here, say hi, buddy, because this is a segment of this is going to be for you a little bit later after we do the rundown. And we were going to kind of compare and contrast, talking a little bit about the AI stuff that I've been playing with and whatever else and how it might relate to all of that. So hopefully you guys, it's going to be something different every day. That's the whole deal. We'll do the rundown. We'll do the stacks. We'll do the pitchers. We'll do the whatever, give out some general tactics as to where we see the slate going and how we're going to attack it. But I also want to kind of bring something fresh to the table every day, which is either a question from a VIP or somebody that we kind of dove into, or somebody needs some help with a tool or something somewhere. And that's going to help us kind of deliver something new and something different each and every day that is a little bit more strategic and shows you essentially the depth at which the coaching is inside this place. Because I don't think that a lot of members really take full advantage of the coaching. A lot of people like to sit back in the background. That's fine. They're a little more introverted, whatever. That's fine too. But man, you get out what you put in to this community, firsthand from, starting as a member or whatever, and then being pulled into staff and everything else. The more talkative you are, the more you share, the more people get to know you, the more you help other people, the more you get pulled forward, or just in general, the more you help people.
No, and I would echo that. We love the DMs. We love the questions that we get in DMs, and we're always going to answer all the coaches, all the sports. But I would encourage just all of our members just to ask them out in the open, ask them in public, because I guarantee you, and this is just me, teacher speak, right? Don't ever be afraid to ask a question, because I guarantee at least one other person is thinking and wondering the same thing. So posting it in chat in the channel benefits everyone too. So I would just encourage you all going forward, just do that, make that kind of your best practice, because the whole class gets helped by that.
It's also funny that you don't need to do much to stand out either, because most people won't do it. Mm-hmm. So, most people won't go through the effort to practice their math flashcards. Most people won't, go to the effort of asking for help. So those that do get a ton of attention, and it really does help them.
Just kidding.
Let's dive. There really isn't, in terms of the slate, it's a huge slate. It's 11 games, and we do have cores on the slate, and that obviously affects things. And we'll get into that in a little bit here. But there's no real weather concerns that I saw. There may be some wind or some temperature or something, but I really don't pay a lot of attention to that stuff. If you do, stop me and point out what you've seen, but I don't really see anything to talk about in terms of weather. Okay. Then we'll just kind of dive in and go into the pitching. We may use the Carnage report or whatever, but when I scroll down here in DS, Chalkboard right now had Mitch Keller on there as chalk, and I even tweeted that out incorrectly because I went off the chalkboard today because it's the easiest place to grab ownerships, and he's not on the main slate. So that's my bad. But when you're looking at the pitchers, Lance McCullers is at the top, Dylan Cease. There's a little bit of a drop-off to your Canning, Holmes, Gore types, and then everything else after that. What do you see? Because I haven't looked at Carnage yet, and that's usually where I get my K-score now. But what do you see in there? Are you going to just kind of eat chalk, or are you going to – do you see anything that is a little lower owned that's sliding under the radar?
I love the McCullers chalk. He had, his first or second game back that he had, he got blown up, and that's when, unfortunately, he started getting all of those death threats. But ever since then, he's just been been solid. He's and living in Houston, we get to hear about it a lot on the news and everything. His last 3 starts, he's given up just 5 runs and he's got 27 strikeouts. So he's definitely trending back to where he used to be, and he's playing the White Sox. So I have no issue with that chalk tonight. He's not terribly expensive either, which is lovely too. He's 8,500 on DraftKings, and I think he's 9,300 on FanDuel. So I don't mind that at all. You mentioned Dylan Cease. Cease is just one of those. You always play him in tournaments because you love the upside, but you always hate playing him in tournaments because he's always going to give up 4 or 5 runs. And the opponent, the Dodgers tonight.
Right.
I think the ownership is just because of the price.
Mm-hmm.
He's 8,400. Is that? I'm
yes.
Trying to squint. Yeah. I think really that's it.
Is that too small for you? Do you need me to blow it up more?
A little bit. Yeah, that would help. My old man eyes. There you go.
Is that better?
Yes. So I really think it's that. But I love him as a tournament option. He's just he's got the strikeout upside that you like. And you can see right there the Padres are actually a little bit of a favorite there too. I think part of that is probably because I think it's Bobby Miller making his first start in however long it's been. So I think Vegas likes the Padres offense to kind of go off on him a little bit. Mackenzie Gore against the Mets. It's interesting that they're the underdog there, but Gore's just been about as elite all season as you can get. Now he's pricey. So I wouldn't necessarily, consider him the cash pitcher. I think McCullers is your cash pitcher, at least one of them. But I think he's definitely in play. Max Fried is probably, if I'm paying up, I might lean Fried just for the win probability. You can see they're almost a 200 favorite, and the Royals just aren't hitting at all. His ERA is under 2, his WHIP's under 1. The Royals have scored, I think, the 4th fewest runs of the team so far. So I think if I'm starting with cash, I'm probably going Fried and McCullers. You can make the argument for Gore too, just because of the upside and just how consistent he's been. If I'm paying down a little bit, I don't know. I mean, Noah Cameron is interesting against the Yankees. The Yankees can randomly go cold. Cameron's got 5 starts this year. They're all quality starts. His ERA is under 1. He's not striking out a ton, which might limit his upside, but I think he's definitely in play. Maybe more on DraftKings where you're not so strikeout dependent. Canning's been solid. He shut out the Dodgers a couple starts ago, over 6 innings. He's got an ERA under 3, so Canning might be a spot that I would go to as well. How expensive is he on DraftKings? He is
74.
Yeah, so that's a nice little savings. So you can do a lot of sort of higher end, lower end combos on DraftKings. I mean, not a ton else. Pepiot, as you say in French, it is interesting. He's been solid all season, and the Red Sox strike out a ton, so you love the K upside there. Maybe to a lesser extent Soriano, but he's just been more awful. But I think other than that, it's really just kind of those 6, and then maybe a sprinkling of others. Bassett against your Cardinals, I could see a little bit more definitely on DraftKings, I think, than on FanDuel. I think he's a little pricier on FanDuel. But that's kind of where I see things a little bit. To me, it's really those 3, Gore, McCullers, and Fried, and then kind of a sprinkling of that second tier.
My question with was Gore 10,000? Is that what I saw?
On DraftKings, yeah. Mm-hmm.
So with him being priced so high, why is his ownership so low when San Francisco is underpriced in Coors, because they didn't take the salary inflate that typically happens. Because when I see that, I'm like, oh, well, obviously the expensive pitchers dropped in ownership because everybody's going to load up on Giants bats and Coors and have to pay those exorbitant prices. Right. But at whatever their average lineup is 39. It's not even 4K. Now that may be punt pricing at the bottom. I don't know. I haven't looked yet, but 4K. When you've got 4,600 for Dodgers, 4,500 for Yankees, 4,200 for Arizona, 4,100 for Tampa Bay. I mean, these guys are fifth or sixth most expensive when they should be. Well, I guess they did come up compared to what they usually are, but maybe not enough. And that's not cost prohibitive to use a Mackenzie Gore necessarily. So that's really interesting to me.
I wonder if that average factors in Chapman's salary, because he's out. He's on the IL now. So I wonder if that's updated. They've got a couple of hitters that have been hitting well. Ramos has been hitting well. Right. But Chapman has been hitting really, really well. But the news came on today that he's on the IL. So I wonder if that is being reflected in that $4,000.
I always thought it used projected lineup. And then as things piled in, it updated, it changed, whatever. I'm just confused as to why, we're getting, McCullers at 8,500 when we've got Gore at 10,000, Fried at 10,500. I'm not saying you can use both of those, but you know what? I didn't have a whole hell of a lot of problem using both of them, both the 10K pitchers last night. Right. Yep. And still building an Arizona stack around them or whatever. It wasn't cost prohibitive. So in a normal situation, I would say, well, my gosh, if those pitchers are better, you take those pitchers and you just fade Coors and go take whatever salary you want and don't pay the inflated Coors pricing, because you can get other stuff elsewhere. And then hope you're right, and then use the floor/ceiling of those expensive pitchers. It looks like everybody tonight is still looking for those value pitchers, even though San Francisco's kind of affordable. So that might be a mistake the field's making. If I look at Carnage, you'd mentioned Canning. I'll go ahead and share this one. You mentioned Canning. He's got the highest or the lowest Carnage score on the slate. So in theory, he's a very, very good option tonight. Now, his K score sucks. It's at like 380. So he's not striking anybody out. The opponent's not really striking out that much, or both, or whatever. That's not like something I want to chase for upside in DFS. It's probably not even something I necessarily trust the floor on too much, but it just feels like a very low upside play. And I'm not usually playing floor unless I've also got upside with it. But, Fried's in there, and that's another one. Middling K score. McCullers, Gore, Cease, those are your dudes that have the K upside. And Gore's the only expensive one. I might fade Fried's price a little bit too. Kansas City's not dangerous, typically. But I don't know. This is one of those again. This is why I like watching Razzle's pitching videos, because they do kind of point things, and he dives deeper than I do into pitching. For me, I like to use ownership as my pitching guide. Most people are going to peg pitching fairly well because it's more predictive than bats. So I'll just use like the top, 5 owned guys, and then let it kind of mix and match, which we'll talk about later. But that's how I go about things. I'm not interested in targeting the nut pitcher that's lower owned, as the way I play it. And Razzle's very good at that, and it has won him a pile of cash. So, if I had more time, maybe I'd invest in that. But yeah, that's just, I don't know. It's kind of the way I see things going there. Should we move on to stacks? I mean, you got McCullers, and you said Cease with the Rocky up and down.
Yeah. And again, you can see right there, he's got such the high K score, but look at the implied run total too. It's 4, right? So I mean, to me, that kind of screams tournament upside right there. Yeah. Right. As opposed to somebody like McCullers, who's got all of those blues, but the implied run totals have run lower. Right.
Well, and that's why he's safer, and he's a cash game. He's a cash game option for sure. So absolutely. Yeah. Well, on the flip side of it, let's actually do this. Let's go back to DS for just a second. Cool. And this will play into kind of what I wanted to talk about with the other video stuff earlier. One thing that I've done playing around with AI, for people that don't know, is I like to get into conversations with ChatGPT or Grok or whoever, and just ask questions back and forth and back and forth and back and forth, and kind of suss out where AI thinks it should go, and then ask it questions. AI is not like, it's only as smart as the questions I ask it. So, I mean, it can pull data and it can do good things, but then I want to ask follow-up questions and I want to drive it deeper. And are you sure about that? ChatGPT, why don't you dig a little deeper and figure this out? And oftentimes it'll change its tune if you offer it conflicting supporting evidence or whatever to your side of the, call it an argument, whatever. But one thing that I found is it really, really recommends using implied run totals. We've heard for 10 plus years or more that you should be trusting Vegas. They put a lot more resources into getting this stuff right and setting the lines and blah, blah, blah. Well, in this case, you sort by IRT and then you eliminate the chalk. And AI is like, that's how I'd do it. And I was like, shit, that's the same stuff we've been saying for decades, but nobody ever listens to it. And every one of us, myself included, gets off the rails, back on the rails, off the rails, back on the rails. If AI is saying it, there's something to it. So actually, we need to leverage stacks instead of walking through this to do that really, really quickly. I will take the IRT and I'll just sort by that and blow this up a little bit more for everybody.
And it's a little bit similar, even though it's more volatile here in baseball, but it's a little bit similar to things like in NFL and Burns, and all of the data and the constant amounts of information he's got together, right? The running backs and the favorite matchups with the 24 plus implied team total, right? Those are his points of data that he uses to kind of cut down and hone in on what he's doing too. The 100%. IRT is specific, very, very comparable to the.
And when we do. When I do box checkers, those are the criteria for box checkers as well. When guys are checking boxes, just play them. And I was amazed when I dove in and found tight ends in NFL. Obviously, the higher scoring the game is, the better it is for everybody. But it is incredibly important for tight ends because a tight end might score, if he's not Travis Kelce or whatever, he might score 6 touchdowns a year. And those typically come as the third or fourth or fifth option. Like you've got Tyreek Hill and you've got, whatever, your big running back maulers on the goal lines and stuff. Well, they're going to get the first touchdown or two, the tush push. But then all of a sudden, we can't tush push every time. We've already scored twice today. So this third time, let's throw him a wrinkle and peel that tide and bing. Because he had a 24 total, he ends up with the third touchdown. It's remarkably reliable for tight ends. They're more likely to score touchdowns when their implied total is up over 24, 25 points. And yes, that's why. So when Vegas gets that stuff right and points that stuff out to us, we should be paying attention. And the IRT column here, if you sort just top to bottom, you're looking at about those top 10 teams on a slate like this, on this size. You still don't need to, unless you're MMEing 2% of everybody, you don't need to worry much outside of about that top 10. I've asked, AI, how many teams should I be building for a 20 max? How many offenses should I focus on? How many for if I can only build 7 lineups, or how many and it usually comes down to 4 to 5 offenses.
4 or 5. Yep.
The bigger the content or the more lineups you can build, of course, you can spread out and start including more. But it's generally telling you somewhere between 3 and 5 offenses is kind of like the sweet spot, because when it comes to this IRT stuff, one of those top 5 teams is probably going to nut the slate. Is probably going to have a big game. And so just put your odds there and kind of hope for the best. So these teams above the IRT, above the 5, San Francisco down to Minnesota over here on the left side, here's what we're going to look for. In the ownership ranking, we've got the number 1 chalk team and the number 2 chalk team in San Francisco and Arizona. Well, on a normal slate, we'd eliminate the top 2 or 3 chalky teams and then roll with teams, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, something like that, as our 5 offenses, and just fade.
Are you on the leverage decks tour right now?
I am. Am I not sharing it?
No, you're still on the tiles.
That would make sense. So here's your IRT over here. Top 8 to 10 teams is what we're looking for when we sort by IRT. And when you come over here and you're looking at the ownership, you're looking for these big red numbers. These are the teams you might eliminate from that high IRT number. The rest of them become the teams that you would play. They're lower owned. They're still scoring high IRTs for the slate, and they're likely to generate a ton of leverage. Again, according to AI. This isn't my brainchild. This is just me being goofy enough to ask AI the questions and run with it. But, and here's the caveat to today that you wanted to talk about. Look at this ownership difference from San Francisco and everybody else. That's gross.
For your tournaments, absolutely.
So, well, yeah, definitely different. Why don't you tell people what we kind of talked about before we went live and what you saw in this chart? Because, I mean, I think we both saw the same thing.
Well, and you've talked about this too when you're looking at the leverage stacks tool, right? And you're trying to say, what teams do I want to hone in, right? You like to look at break points, right? When there's 60, 58, 57, and then it jumps down to 49, right? There's a little gap. Then it continues 47, 46, then it jumps down to 39. There's a gap, right? Those naturally occurring tiers, right? Those are the things that kind of make you pop off and say, okay, wait a second, what do I want to do with this information? Well, when you're talking about large field tournaments like this, and you see a team over twice as highly owned as any other team, at least to me in the large field, that just screams a fade to me. Now, could San Francisco score 11 runs in Coors? Absolutely. And if I don't have them, I'm not going to win. But that's a perfect spot to try to get, to me, leverage on the field. If everybody's going to do that, I'm going to try to do something else and put myself in a much better position, because we know in baseball, any team can go off sort of at any given time. So I would rather bet on San Francisco being cold the first game in Coors, and try to take my shots somewhere else. And we even talked about, if you fade them, all 3 games in Coors, if you're right 1 out of the 3 times, well, then you're going to most likely be profitable over those 3 slates, right? You got it right once. Yeah, sure, maybe they went off for 10, 11 runs the other 2 nights, but, the one night that you don't play them and they score twice, you've got so much leverage over the field and you jump everybody else so much more.
Look at the chunk of the field it takes out with it.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you're talking about 120 team ownership and a 45, the next closest thing. This is going to take out a ton of people if it fails.
Yeah. Could they score 10 runs? Absolutely. It's Coors, right?
And then you're toast, because everybody in the world is going to be higher than you.
Correct. But if you're on them with everybody else, you're also not leapfrogging everybody else the way that you want to in order to take down one of these giant tournaments. You're just kind of going along with the field. Now, if they were 65% owned, do I rethink that? Probably. I would have shares of them, but that's just, to me, just screaming fade in a tournament.
Yeah, and I'm 100% with you. And like we said, all 3 games, if the ownership stays this, the discrepancy is this large. Like if they get a couple other teams at 95, and see, today we don't have to worry about fading 2 teams or 3 teams, because there are several
21 other
teams.
There's 21 other teams on there too, right?
I mean, look at this. They all just drop off into oblivion. I mean, you're not going to call any of these next 4 or 5 teams chalky.
No, not at all.
Yet they're carrying some of the higher IRTs as well. Now, here's the part that really kind of got.
So that's where you want to look.
It did change. Yes, absolutely. So, and this is where I was going in the beginning with the pitching, is we can play the chalk pitching. So we're naturally going to get off of it, for the bats, if we're fading San Francisco. Now, I'm not expecting some San Francisco fan out there to fade San Francisco. Play your team, man.
Yeah.
But I know I'm not going to be on them. And again, if it shows up same ownership like this again tomorrow, I won't be on them again. And I won't be on them again until they leave town. And I'm going to love this as much as this. So if they're underpriced for Coors and everybody's just taking the value, that's great. Value is smart. But value with that much ownership still gives me opportunity to do something different. And I don't have to worry about pitching anymore. Maybe I can afford better pitching. Maybe I can't. But I can eat a cheap McCullers if I'm taking, Arizona or down here, Tampa Bay or the New York Yankees or whatever. If that cheaper pitcher helps me stack those more expensive bats that are not as highly owned as San Francisco, because he's a cheap pitcher and he's the chalk. I mean, it's like, man,
Yeah. Now, am I going to play San Francisco in a cash line or in a 3-man contest or a 5-man contest? Absolutely, because that's what the field is doing. And, when you've got that small size of a contest, you don't have to get crazy from what everybody else is doing. Make 1 or 2 smart pivots and you're there. So for a cash line, I would have 3, maybe 4 Giants in there. In a 3-man contest, I would have 3 or 4 Giants in there. In a 5-man contest, I would have 3 or 4 Giants in there. But for a 300,000 person, no, go away.
Right. I'm going to show you something. I just did this. So I'm going to switch back to the domination station for a second.
Okay.
There's our pitchers. There's our chalk, right? All your McCullers, Cease, Canny, these guys all up at the top. Watch what happens to these team offense players right here. I'm not going to go catcher, first base, second base by position. I'm just going to use the general hitters tab. Oh, hello, San Francisco.
6 out of the first 7.
Look at that. Look at that.
Yep.
6 out of the 7, they're above, Aaron Judge and Mike Trout and whatever else. These are obviously cash game guys.
Yes,
you were talking about, are we going to stack all 5 or what? Nah, maybe not. Maybe you tone it down and diversify a little bit because it is cash. But you know what? If you ate them all, now again, they're all sub 20% owned in theory. Now in cash, they're going to be higher than that. These are tournament projections.
These are tournament projections. Yep.
They're going to be higher than that in cash games, most likely, most of the time. So you're going to definitely want to include a few of these guys in a cash lineup. Now, a tournament, like you said, be gone, fade them all. Let me get to, I guess, some of the questions in the comments and stuff first, because what we're going to transition to next is what you had talking about Juggernaut with. Mm-hmm. And I think this is a pretty good segue to do that. I just want to make sure that I don't miss a ton of people. Blue Jays, fine. Again, they're all in that 20 to 30 to 40% owned range. So anyone you like is fair game tonight. If you're fading Giants, or you want to put Giants in your mini stack and use those other guys as a big stack, fine. Or if you are using Giants as a big stack, anybody you mini stack with them is going to be low on by comparison. So really, it's kind of all on the table. You're either on San Francisco or you're off of San Francisco, or using them in some other way, shape, or form. It's easy to get off of it's easy to avoid duplication tonight. That's what we really should be saying. Gore's number 1 for Don. I would agree. White Sox been hitting the ball a little bit lately. I would also agree. Pairing Chapman with Ramos. You said Chapman's on the DL, right? IL, whatever.
Yeah.
So he's not negotiable. How do you navigate potentially conflicting information in the tools? And that's a great question by Harlock. Playing FanDuel tonight, Gore is the highest point per dollar in raw points, but in leverage stacks, the Mets are 5th in projected points.
Average projected points.
When you see conflicting, generally speaking, when you see conflicting evidence in the tools, it's kind of telling you to pick a side. It's not one of those things where it's saying, oh, it's definitely this way or it's definitely that way. We love seeing stuff line up. Like when I was brand new to DFS, I would follow Geek and then a couple other guys around the industry before DFS Army was even started. And basically, I'm looking for 3 or 4 guys to start saying the same thing. If these guys, your Al Smizzles and whatever, if these guys are all kind of starting to say the same things, they're probably right. And so I would look for that type of – our tools are very, very similar. It's like using all of the different touts across the industry. And so when you are listening to leverage stacks or listening to the research data or listening to this or this and that, when they all line up, it's very, very easy. When they start going against each other and they start conflicting, now it's telling you, what do you think? Which tool do you trust? What opinion do you want to put your money on? Because it's not as obvious.
And kind of what story do you want to tell, right? The DS can take you so far. The DS can say, hey, these are people in a good spot, but then how do you see the game playing out? Do you see Gore continuing his dominance and striking out 9? And the Mets projections, can take a hike, or do you see the Mets getting to him? That's kind of the choice you have to make a little bit in terms of how.
Because it's typically going to go one way or the other. Mm-hmm. And it's not predictable. Or you could do what I do typically, which is say, I'm going to take the stuff where it is pointing to more than 1 or 2 things. I'm not going to worry about that over there. I'm just going to leave that off because I'm not going to guess right no matter what I do. Hopefully that helps. Harlock. Tattoo says take the money line on the Rockies. Early payout if they get up by 5 runs. Interesting.
They could. I mean, that Giants lineup isn't terribly Excellent.
Yeah.
And I think typically, the first game for a team in Coors isn't usually the greatest.
No, absolutely.
So,
Absolutely. There is when both teams have been on the road, like the visiting team coming in, or Coors is coming off of a road trip, Colorado's coming off a road trip, coming back
yep.
home. There's a little bit. It seems like in a game of millimeters, there's a little bit to that. Ball doesn't break as much, and all of a sudden they're adjusted to being down closer to sea level. And sometimes it's a thing. Some years I've done that research too. Some years it's a thing. Some years it's not. We used to call it the first game fade, and I mean, it's still kind of a crapshoot because again, we just don't have huge sample sizes
right
to go on to know which one maybe powers over the other. But if it's a thing for this year, I would stay on it all year. And if it's not a thing this year, I would stay off of it all year. And I would just play the year out that way. Chapman still lists as a core play. That's going to have to update the cheat sheets, or it's one of those things that in the Discord that we're going to have to alert whoever's doing the cheat sheets tonight and let them know. Obviously, don't use them. Right. Use the other core plays. Don't use him. This was written before he hit the IL, before that news hit, 20, 30 minutes ago. This is pretty new information. So, I mean, we'll give the coach a little bit of time to catch it and move on. But a lot of these guys have done their research, have put them in there, and they're working on lineups, or they're helping people in the Discord, and they're not going back to the cheat sheets as much. So if you're in the Discord, a quick reminder to who that coach is might help get that rectified quicker. Because Darth and I are busy on the show. But it's a good thing to point out.
Yeah, I don't think I have Coors listed, so I don't think it was me. But then again, talking about trends and Coors and everything, you're right. Arizona, you see Corbin Carroll, like he's the lone dude right there in the top 7, right? A lot of times we also see, a team that explodes the night before, they kind of, forget to show up the next night. So I know they're kind of one of those teams that are sort of on the higher end of the leverage stacks and everything. But that might be a team that you say, hey, maybe I don't go as heavy and just let the field fall into the recency bias.
Absolutely. Mm-hmm. And on low ownership, it's not that hard to, I mean, when they're super, super low owned, if you're wrong, it's not that damaging necessarily. There's still plenty of room for people to cash and get some money back out of the contest. You can't be wrong on San Francisco, of course, but you can't be short-sighted on San Francisco either. This is a kind of a, here's what we see, this is the move we're going to make, and it may not work for us. But and that's why you can't fade San Francisco in cash games, is because there's too many people on them that if they don't go off, it doesn't hurt you because it hurt everybody. If they do go off and you're not on them, it does hurt you, and you're going to feel like a dumbass for not being on them like the rest of the chalk. In a tournament, totally different. If they go off, okay, c'est la vie. If they do, fail, then, or if the other team that you're not on is low owned and they go off, there's still plenty of room around them to kind of get in there and get some money back. So, who's the 5 San Francisco sack play, or the 4, or play the other 4 of the core? I don't. If Chapman's not a core play because he's on the IL, I'm going to plug and play about anybody. I'm not going to all of a sudden move another guy in the 8 hole and say, well, he's now a core play. Mm-hmm. That's not how I'm going to think, because those 2, Chapman and then this new 8, it's not like this 8 hole guy, let's just hypothetically say, it's not like this 8 hole guy was barely on the outside looking in, and I really couldn't decide between Chapman and, the bottom of the lineup guy. Mm-hmm. It's just good. But I'm still 5 stacking. I'm still 5 stacking San Francisco if that's what I'm going to do. Now, again, in cash games, I might tone that down a little bit. But in a tournament, if I'm on San Francisco and I'm going to stack them, I'm probably not going to say, well, Chapman's out, so I'm only going to 4 stack them. No, I'm going to find somebody else to put in there. And that's just going to free up some salary for me to go grab a Corbin Carroll or go grab an Aaron Judge or somebody like that if I can. Because that's where I'm going to gain that upside. But I still want that lineup, because 4 or 5 or 6 or 7 bats, if they ever would let me do it, will allow me, as that lineup circles over and over and over and over, cycles over and over again, gets me more and more and more opportunity for those 7, 8, and 9 hole scrubs to get. I mean, I want my 9 hole guy getting 6 at bats instead of 3, because it's going to give me more opportunity for him to get a walk, more opportunity for him to single in somebody and at least pay off his salary. So I'm going to focus on that. If I really like that game enough to 4 stack it, I like it enough to 5 stack it. I'll find another piece.
Go play on Yahoo. They're like just 6 stack, I think.
Right.
So.
So dropping no home run props and parlays, that is not going to be my thing in a DFS show. I'm not good at it. I would, but I'm not good at it. So, I mean, I don't mean to let you down, Chris, but that's not going to be something that I'm really good at. And especially a no home run parlay of all these guys not hitting home runs. I don't even know what those options would look like. I mean, I would assume go take a bunch of 9-hole hitters, but the problem is I don't think the sites would allow that because they're probably giving you guys that do hit home runs and saying which one won't tonight. And those are probably your options.
I think he's talking about there are sites that offer no home runs by team.
Oh, by team.
Like this team won't hit a home run tonight.
Oh, last night would have been your night.
Mm-hmm.
Did you notice that? I mean, Tampa Bay scored 10 runs or whatever. No bombs.
No home runs.
Somebody else scored 7. No bombs. I want to say even the Dodgers, no bombs or whatever. Boston had no bombs. I was like, what the hell? I can't remember a night with that many runs on it, typically, that many teams scoring 6+ runs and not hitting multiple home runs. Like a few teams did. But, I mean, there were so many 0 home run lineups like Pittsburgh. They are like another 10-run team, no bombs, which shouldn't be surprising because they're a low ISO team. But at the same token, they scored 10 runs. You'd have thought they ran into one. They didn't. They just needle-dick the base paths. It's crazy.
Baseball.
Absolutely crazy. So, yeah, that would make more sense if it's a team and a no home. I mean, I don't know which ones. But, I mean, as we saw last night, some decently powerful teams didn't hit one. I might not chase them. You know, if they have a team with power, I might not go back to the well and hope they don't do it again tonight. I might think they'd bounce back like Philly or whatever. I would chase Pittsburgh.
Yeah.
They'd fine. Use them.
Any of the bad offenses. I wonder if that's something you could use the weather to your advantage. I'm sure the odds are baked into the wind blowing in at 17 miles an hour. But
sure.
That's something you could use the weather for, I bet. But I've never tried that.
Right. I've never thought about doing that either. Gordon Harrison for you, large field. Don, I like it. Yep. Question for y'all to look at. Definitely this lineup for me and tell me what you think.
Yeah, Harrison's more in play, if at all, on DraftKings, just because he doesn't go deep into games. I think he's gone 5 innings once this season. But the peripherals are pretty solid, and it's the Rockies. So I like that as an SB2.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So you submitted Fried McCullers, and then Goldschmidt, Polanco, Volpe, Rojas, Antonio Rodriguez, and Rosarena. I can't tell how heavily that is stacked. If you're in cash and it's not stacked, that's fine. But without the teams and without knowing in my head, Polanco, I'm thinking it's like a Jorge Polanco, a Rosarena,
Seattle,
probably Julio Rodriguez, right? Goldschmidt's a Yankee, 2 Yankees. So if you're kind of
Diamondbacks,
yeah, if you're going 3-2-2 in a tournament, I'm going to tell you that ain't going to fly. Mm-hmm. Typically. That's so 3-3-2, whatever. It needs to be stacked a lot harder. The evidence has shown historically that, especially on big slates, you need to go big on one offense somewhere, and you need to be right in tournaments, medium to large field tournaments. Now, if you're playing, which we'll get into here in a second, but if you get into your 3-man, 5-man, 10-man leagues and stuff, their 3-3-2 will play.
Absolutely.
And cash, it'll play. And it's a smart thing to diversify. But if you're going for GPPs and those top heavy pay structures where the winner gets a lot and the loser doesn't, you need to really load up on one side and just draw your line in the sand and be like, I'm here tonight. I'm planting my flag. And that's just the way that it is. Always learning, coming to this channel. That's good. That's what we're trying to do, Don. And if you're not a VIP yet, that little banner down there, MLB Live for the 10% off, seriously, consider jumping in because we do a lot more of this in the Discord. If you are in there, then take advantage of us in there too at 2:30 in the afternoon when we're not on the show, because that's when you're going to get a lot of one-on-one back and forth from any of us coaches. That's really, really awesome. I'm glad that you spoke up and said that you're learning a lot from this channel. I hope everybody else is too. Let's pivot into Juggernaut and what you talked about.
Yeah, he was asking via DM He plays FanDuel. He was happy that, at least one of the coaches plays FanDuel primarily, and that's me. I don't know, for whatever reason, I've always had more success on FanDuel. I know I'm in the great minority around here.
I'm usually with you. I usually play more FanDuel than other. Well, my app has been funky lately, so it's really kept me. Like, I'll use my PC to build my lineups, but I use my app to track my scores, track my winnings, and all this kind of stuff. And when the app doesn't work, I'm not going to the PC to double check everything. So I just tend to stay with DraftKings, but I like FanDuel better myself as well.
But he was asking, he plays primarily 3-man, and we were kind of, talking about some of those smaller contests. A cash contest is a safe contest. A 3-man is a fairly safe and small contest. A 5-man, a 10-man, right? So he was asking, and the question came about from a conversation you and I had on one of the shows last week. Somebody asked about how to put together a single entry lineup. So I kind of talked through my process a little bit, and I think refreshing that, coupled with what you were talking about with the AI and things like that, that's a great place to start to kind of answer him. So when I'm creating, and for all intents and purposes, a 3-man contest is a cash lineup. Yes. When I choose my pitcher, I'm going to choose the chalk. I'm just going to go chalk. I'm going to try to get different elsewhere. I'm going to kind of quote unquote lock in the points, as it were. And so again, if you're playing cash, we know to do this. We follow the ownership. And then depending on how big the contest gets after that, that tells us how many kind of pivots or changes from that chalk we need to get. So if I'm playing FanDuel tonight, McCullers is my chalk pitcher, is my pitcher for my 3-man. You had mentioned, I think I mentioned it earlier too, on FanDuel 4-3 is the historically most successful stack. On a small contest, 10-man, even getting to 20-man, could you go a 3-3-2? Absolutely. Mm-hmm. But I'm going to stay with the teams, and that's where I think, to me, the leverage tool or the leverage stacks tab comes into play so much. I'm looking at the ownership, and that tells me, hey, who should I be on tonight? So tonight, like we've talked about all show, I'm going to stack San Francisco. I'm probably going to stack 4
in the smaller contests.
Correct, in one of these 3, 5, 10-mans. Yep, in a cash lineup, right? But whatever that team is, and generally I'm looking for, kind of like you talked about, I'm looking for those teams in the top 4 or 5 spots when it comes to the leverage rank. I look at that and I couple that with the ownership, and I decide, okay, what teams do I like there? So if I'm looking at FanDuel tonight and I'm looking at the ownership and I'm looking at the leverage tab, San Francisco is definitely going to be one of them. And if I'm scrolling over and keep, do you have that up, the leverage tab up?
Which way you want to go?
You're on FanDuel.
I am on DraftKings.
Okay.
Get down to FanDuel for you.
Yeah, because they're always going to be a little bit different because the pricing isn't quite as tight.
You want to sort? You want to sort by ownership, or you want to sort by something else?
No, sort by ownership. Mm-hmm.
So there's your San Francisco 131%, and then Arizona, LA, Tampa Bay.
That's just ridiculous. I don't remember the last time I've seen something like that.
I don't either.
So that tells me right off the bat, in a small 3, 5, 10-man contest, you have to stack. You have to stack because, like you said earlier, if they go off and you don't have them, you're done. If they do go off and you do have them, then you're going along with the field. So then what I would do is I would scroll over to the leverage, the column all the way over on the right, the leverage rank. I'm looking. So I think any one of those 4 teams right there, which is
2, 3, 4, 5.
Yep. So any one of those 4 teams, it's Arizona. Who is it?
It is Arizona.
I'm refreshing now too.
LA, Arizona, LA, Anaheim, Tampa Bay, New York Yankees. Those are your next 4 teams.
Okay. So any one of those, I would stack. I would consider Arizona. I would consider New York, or I would consider, I think, Tampa Bay. Just if I'm keeping everything organized by ownership, and then I scroll over, those 3 teams out of those next 5 based on ownership, they also show up in the top 5 in the leverage rank, if that makes sense.
Which 3 teams?
So if I'm keeping everything organized by ownership, you go back and sort by ownership.
I did.
Did you?
Yeah.
Okay.
It never changed.
Really? Okay.
Yeah. So it should be.
Refresh.
Are we different?
I'm looking.
Because if we're different, I need to refresh because something changed.
Total ownership. Let's see.
And it could even be as simple as Chapman hitting the IL and finally populating through the sheets too.
No, because now I've got San Francisco 145, Arizona at 56.
Wow. All
So
right.
it changed.
Well, let's refresh it.
Okay.
And then go back to the FanDuel tab, blow that back out, sort by ownership. Oh, look at my ownerships are a 0.
Oh, that's funny. So all I'm saying is, I've sorted by ownership and I'm looking at, and I'm keeping it sorted that way. Then the next 5 teams by ownership are Arizona, Tampa Bay, the Angels, the Rockies, and the Yankees. If I keep it sorted by ownership and I scroll all the way over to the leverage rank, Arizona's ranked 2nd, Tampa's ranked 4th, the Angels are ranked 8th, the Rockies are ranked 20th, and the Yankees are ranked 3rd. So out of those next 5 teams, I'm going to consider the teams that are also ranked in the top 5 in leverage, because we know that they're chalk, but we also know that they're also projected to be in a good spot that you can get a little bit, again, different or ahead on the field.
So you're tie breaking with that. You're fading the top in San Francisco, and the next 4 or 5 teams down there, you're using leverage rank to kind of tie break which ones you might use in your mini stack.
As my second stack.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm going to keep San Francisco would be my top, right? Just because of the ownership for the cash or the 3-man or the 5-man. And then based on which of the next 5 teams are all in ownership are also next 5 in leverage, that's where I'm going to kind of pick and choose and see which ones line up in both of those. Okay. And like you can see there, it's the Yankees, it's the Rays, and it's the Diamondbacks. So then I just see, can I build a 4-3 stack with one of those teams?
And would you hand build it?
I would hand build it, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I might set up the DS with just those, with locking in San Francisco on the main stack side, and then put the other 3 on the 3 stack and just see what it gives me. I mean, I like to do that just to get ideas, because a lot of times the DS is smarter than me.
I don't think anybody's denying. It's smarter than all of us.
Yeah, but again, that just tells me, because again, the leverage rank column takes all of that on the page there into consideration. So if it's an amalgamation of all of that, then that tells me that the Yankees, the Rays, and the Diamondbacks are all solid stack choices as well. It gives you ownership, it gives you projection, it gives you raw points per dollar. It kind of blends it all together. So to me, in a small contest, that makes sense.
Okay. I would agree with you 100%. I'm looking at the DS right now. It's on DraftKings, but I'm going to kind of do what you were talking about doing. Let me, you tell me those next 5 teams, because I'm going to put San Francisco in at 100% on the big side. We're going to see if we can't get this going. I took the pitchers and just left McCullers, Cease, Cannon, Gore, Fried, those dudes in there, just the top few. And that way it's using some chalk options. It's using chalk San Francisco. I guess if we're going to tone it down a little bit, let's do this for fun. Let's go down to a 4x3, even on DraftKings, just for fun. And that'll mimic FanDuel a little bit more. Who were your other teams on the small side?
The next 5 were Arizona,
right?
Tampa Bay, the Angels
way down here.
The Rockies,
where'd you go?
And the Yankees.
There you go. And Yankees, there we go. And so if we wanted to mix and match a little bit, would you put a max exposure on that stack 2 side? Or would you?
Yeah, I mean, if we were running, 10 lineups, I might put the max at, 30 or 40%.
Perfect.
Just to try to blend it in.
That's exactly what I did. So that's all we're doing. And all we're really doing here is we're just trying to get ideas at what we like. There's San Francisco in a 4x3 with Colorado, and Caminero as the one-off from Tampa Bay. And that's using Fried and Gore. So you went high end on the pitching, and then it gave you 4 Giants, 3 Rockies. So you're game stacking more or less. And it's unintentional.
And your one-off has some good upside. Caminero's got some good upside. Giolito's been not very good this year, and Caminero's been hot.
So
and
the
that's
next
what you want
lineup,
with
in
the one-off.
fact,
You want that one-off with home run upside. That's what
absolutely.
you're trying to do.
In fact, in all 10 lineups that we built, it's using Fried and Gore. Didn't use McCullers in any of those.
That's interesting.
That is interesting. And that might be your one slight little difference if you're eating San Francisco chalk. That does help you a little bit. See these things, and we'll talk about that in a minute, but these contests are a little bit of hybrid type of contests, which we obviously want to cover, but 1, 2, 3, 4, 3 Rays and 4. And this is using Taylor Wade as your one-off at second base out of San Diego. That one I might not like because he's not a standalone player.
Right. Well, then you can just use your little green arrows and maybe
100%.
put McCullers in it. You put McCullers in for one of those, and you free up $1,500, and then you can get a stud.
Because man, your other options down there were pretty pukey. If I wanted to do that, then who would I sub McCullers in for? Fried?
Yeah.
Let's do that just for kicks. Now I'm going to find this lineup again. It's going to be the only one with McCullers in it. So it went all the way down to the 10th in projected points. It doesn't mean much. And that frees up Taylor Wade to come all the way up to Brendan Donovan, Jose Altuve, Jake Cronenworth, much better options. Tommy Edman, if you want the bottom of the LA Dodgers lineup, Ozzie Albies. If you want somebody who's going to get a lot of at-bats, maybe Jonathan India leading off. But I might rather – goodness. I don't want to get too low down here. Marcus Semien in the 4-hole in Texas. I would stay at the top here. You get what you pay for in a lot of cases. I'd say in these upper 3s and the 4s. Donovan is going to bring bang for the buck. Most of the time, he's one of the league leaders in average, of course. Doesn't hit for a lot of power. You might choose a Jose Altuve there, Cronenworth. Those are the options.
Or put in Fitzgerald and give yourself a 5-stack of Giants.
That's true, too. Yeah. Not a bad idea either. Cool. But you get the idea. Scroll down a little bit more to what would be the third lineup.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I guess the second one now. It's back on Fried and Gore, and you've got 3 Diamondbacks. Again, Ryan Ritter, 8th place in the Rockies lineup. I might not use that.
Yeah.
You might do the same thing. You might do a McCullers swap and then see what you get in the one-off. There's 3 Rays again with 4 Giants. TJ LeMahieu. It's really trying to punt that last spot, probably because it's eating a lot of it.
You're paying up the pitchers. Yeah.
It's really trying, which I would try to avoid. So it might dictate a McCullers. Being that McCullers is chalk and being able to want to play these contests safely, then I might do that. I might pivot there to free up something. But then again, I might want the floor of those pitchers too.
Yeah.
If it's more predictive, you kind of want that floor. Yeah. I mean, do I want an 8th-place hitter in the Colorado lineup? No. But if I'm going to take a 0, I'd rather take it on a bat than a pitcher without the floor that he might have. And in this lineup that I'm looking at now, it's using Nolan Gorman as a 7-hole hitter in card. That's not great. That's not even good. But to be fair, Nolan Gorman has more power probably than Ritter does in Colorado. So if you run into one and you get really, really lucky with your punt, then okay, you get, whatever it is, 12, 16 points and yeehaw. But you really maybe want to keep the floor intact of the pitchers, but you've got that. That's where the debate comes in. You got all that ownership on McCullers. I don't need to give a shit. If I eat McCullers, I don't need to care how he does tonight because we're all going up and we're all going down together. And then maybe my little upgrade in the bat maybe does make a difference. Maybe I get lucky and using Altuve in that one lineup and he hits one or whatever. And that separates me from the pack. Tough decisions. That's why these games aren't easy. There's 3 Angels. 3 Diamondbacks again.
Just punting that one spot.
Yep. And it is continually punting that spot, which again, fine, whatever.
Yeah, but like you and I think you're the one that said this before, but when you're playing these cash contests or these small contests, right? You've got the pitching, you've got the big stack, you've got the small stack, and you've got the one-off. You only really need to get super different in one of them.
Correct.
You can eat the chalk everywhere else. So eat the McCullers chalk, eat the Giants chalk, find one of those 4 things, one of those 4 places to get a little bit different. Not stupid, right? Right. Even though the Rockies are right there in the top 5 there in ownership, I'm not stacking the Rockies in my cash lineup or in my 5-man contest, right? I'm going to go to the Angels or the Rays or the Yankees because just their upside is better. And
correct.
Their leverage rank is better, right?
Yep.
So the bigger the contest, the more quote unquote stupid you need to get in order to win the thing, right? But in these smaller ones, like the 3-man, like Juggernaut asked about, it's chalk pitcher, it's the chalk stack, it's one other chunk that's group stack that's in a great spot, and then pick a one off with upside.
Yeah.
And you've built cash lineups before, kind of using just the cut everybody under 10% and run the DS, right? It's the same sort of theory, right? Where you're wanting to do exactly what the field is doing, and then sprinkle in just a little bit of difference.
Right. Well, when you're in a 3-man or 5-man contest where a winner takes all, or a 10-man league where only the top 3 pay, and yet first place does make more than second, which makes more than third, et cetera, those smaller fields, you don't have to do so well to beat all those people. You can do it on a less than perfect score, but you still do need some upside to get there. You can't just play a floor-only lineup. We used to do that in NFL when, droolers couldn't tie their shoes, and they would stack the defense against their quarterback, and it's like, what are you doing, man? But in that case, we've all learned that that's not the way to go anymore. So what we're doing these days, we have to be a little bit sharper, and we need to take a little bit of risk because everybody's kind of sharp, and that's why what we'll do is we'll take those chalk teams and we'll stack them up a little bit. We'll use that correlation a little bit. We hope the offense is right. We hope Vegas is right. We hope the implied run total is right. We hope ownership is right. We hope all that stuff works, because this isn't the contest to make those fades, because it just doesn't take that much to win. If all 3 of us in a 3-man contest are stacking the Giants, then it's going to come down to our mini stacks, or it's going to come down to that one-off punt or whatever else. And that's all it takes. And that guy does a little bit better than everybody else by a point or two. And the next thing you know, you win all the money. Now, that's not going to do anything for you in the mini max. In the mini max, you got to get funky because you're trying to beat 50,000 people. So
silly for the Millie.
What I would tell Juggernaut, hopefully he's listening, is that the smaller the field, the safer you play. Not totally safe, but the safer you play. The larger the field. And I would still call under 200 people. Pretty small field. But it doesn't take much. After that, you get into the 300, 400, 500, man, now you're starting to get you got to take some risk to win those things, because it's not easy to beat 500 people. And then 1,000, 10,000, 50,000, 100,000. It is not easy. Like winning the Millie we talked about. The problem with the Millies is so top heavy, you absolutely have to go for the throat, because if you get second place, you're not even getting 500K. Winner gets $1 million, and the drop off is so huge, and that affects your ROI. The guy that's won the Millie before, his ROI is naturally a lot higher than everybody else that hasn't, because and they may be negative EV. He is positive because that top heavy play, and he got lucky enough to win it. The guy who finished second, the guy who finished third in the Millie produced, honestly, just as good a lineup, just as different a lineup, just as risky a lineup, just as unique a lineup. He just didn't beat that last guy. And that sucks. But because it may be the closest anyone ever gets. But you have to get good at getting there over and over and over again and giving yourself a chance over and over and over again. And eventually you'll pop that sucker. So that's obviously what we're aiming to do. Let's wrap up here with Thunder's question. He's new, which thank you for finding us. Thank you for hopefully giving us a like and a subscribe, and then thinking about that banner down there at the bottom with the MLB Live and 10% off. Go over how to use the stacking part and the tools, please. That makes it sound like you're actually a VIP, which is be even more awesome. In which case, you just go tell the boss how awesome our show is and how much you like us. Go back over to Domination Station here. This tab here would be easier. And he wants to know about stacking, how to set it up. So let's do that really quickly, and I'll show you a default method.
Can you zoom in a little bit more?
Yep. Is that there?
Yeah, we're good.
Okay. So we're going to use uniques, whatever, 2, 3 uniques. That doesn't really matter for these purposes. None of this stuff matters. We'll use 10 lineups here. I'll go ahead now and make 20 just to make it a little bit bigger. And all I'm going to do is I'm going to keep the stuff the same in terms of, the pitching and stuff, just so it gives us reasonable pitchers. On this left side, I'm going to shrink it just a smidge. On this left side, first you're going to click, where did the sucker click? It's right above, there it is, disable team stacking. So this line right here is what you're looking at, enable team stacking. You open that up. You've got all your formations across the middle here. This means three from a team on one side, 2 from a team on the other. 3 from a team, 3 from a team. 4 from a team, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. On DraftKings, especially on larger slates, we're using 5x2 type stacking or 5x3. On FanDuel, if you're a FanDuel player, you're using 4x3, maybe 4x4. On the giant slates like tonight, you might want to entertain that 4x4 or 5x3 because we're trying to nail offenses really, really hard. And with this many options tonight, the chances of a couple of teams going off are very, very high, as opposed to a 3-man slate where we've only got, or a 3-game slate where we've only got 6 teams to choose from, which means odds are better that we're going to be in both of those offenses, and we want to be in them very, very hard, which obviously you understand because you're asking about stacking. So let's just use the 5x2 by default, turn to 4x3 off, understanding that if you were on FanDuel, you'd be using the 4x3 as well as your maximum option. 100%. You can break this up. You could use 10% 5x, 70% 5x2, 20% 5x3. As long as whatever you're using in these numbers adds up to 100%, you should be good to go. I just tend to choose just 5x2, throw 100 on it, and ignore everything else. On the left side, stack number 1. This is where you're going to select your teams. Darth, throw me some teams.
Let's see. So we got San Francisco, Yankees. Let's go Rays, Angels, all the way down the bottom.
Right.
Arizona.
Arizona.
How many teams do we have? We have 6.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Let's leave it at 5 so it's easy for 20 lineups.
Sure.
20 lineups, 5% is going to give you 1 lineup of each. So I'm going to start there. And I'm going to put a 5% minimum on this left-hand side. I can leave it at 100%. I usually don't mess with this side because what I'm going to start controlling is this number here, this left side on all these individual teams that we have checked. And I'm going to watch this total exposure right here. Okay, so we're already at 25%. We've got 5 teams, 5% each. 5 times 5 is 25. What do we want more of, Darth? Do we want more San Francisco or Tampa, or who do we want more of tonight?
I think we want more Angels. We want more Tampa. We want more Arizona.
Okay, how much more? Because we're building 1 lineup of San Francisco, 1 lineup of the Yankees. How many lineups of Arizona do you want?
Let's go 15%.
15%. That's 3 lineups of Arizona.
Minimum.
And that's it. Now it changed our number to 35%.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
How many Tampa Bay?
15.
15.
Yeah.
There's more. How many LA?
Let's do 15. Yeah.
15. So now what we've done is we've got 3 lineups of Tampa Bay, Arizona, and on the big stack side, 1 lineup of San Francisco and New York. It still leaves a lot of room for the optimizer to take all the San Francisco at once. It's just going to build us at least 1. Okay. And what we will often do is when I'm doing these, I will make these all here. I'll keep adding until this hits 100 because I want to control exactly what I build. But this leaves wiggle room, which allows the DS to do its work as well. On the right side, do we want to add any teams to these that we're using? Got Colorado, maybe San Francisco, Tampa, Arizona.
Let's add Seattle.
Add Seattle?
Yeah. Let's add the Athletics too.
And add the Athletics. Okay. So now we've added a few more teams over here, but we've still got them at, say, 40%. If we want to cut that down to even 30%, what I'm doing over here is I'm saying you don't have to use anybody with the 0%, right? If I wanted at least 1 Arizona, I'd put that in there like that. But I've generally got, I don't care if you omit any of these teams, but I don't want more than 30% because what that's doing is it's going to force Arizona with Seattle, Arizona with Tampa Bay, Arizona with San Francisco. It's not going to give me all Arizona and Seattle. So I don't want that. I want it to mix around. I want it to this secondary side to kind of play around and give me different combinations because I don't know which of these combinations is going to go off. But this is generally how you're using that stacking tool. Once you've got these things set up where you've got your main teams chosen on the left side and then your other, and you can control this as much or as little as you want. Like we left it room to wiggle here on this total exposure side. We can fill it all the way to 100%, but don't fill it to 105 or 110 or it's going to shut down on you. The tool's going to stop. But on the right-hand side, leave it a little bit wide open as well. And all we do now is just come down here and hit optimize. We've got our pitchers set up. We've got our stacks set up. We've got our formation down here, our stacking combo set up. And now we just go down here and we see what it gives us. And here's the trick to this tool. I can look at it gave me still 100 and 100 Fried and Mackenzie Gore, which is really interesting. But I'm going to come over here to the stacks tab, and I'm going to look at who are my big stacks. So those 5 teams that I've selected, it used all of them at least once. It really filled in with Arizona. I thought it would have gone San Francisco, but it really filled in with Arizona, which is nice. And then these are the teams that it kind of paired with it. But when I want to see what did you do with those 8 Arizona lineups, I'm going to click Combinations tab. And it gave me Arizona, Tampa Bay, Arizona, Seattle, Arizona, Colorado, Arizona, San Francisco. 1 lineup of that, 2 with Colorado, 3 with Seattle, 7 with Tampa Bay. I mean, that gave you a lot of, it's not only Arizona, Tampa Bay, at least that 30% in that small stack side saved us from getting all Arizona, Tampa Bay. It forced other options into there, and that's where we picked up some Seattle, and that's where we picked up some Colorado and whatever. But it still gave us a few of these other little randos that are among the teams that we still chose. So it's diversifying our lineups for us a little bit. And then you can come down here and you can play with the stacks. And like we pointed out before, if you were or were not watching, let's say that you wanted to change out your, Max Fried. You hit these little green arrows here, and it brings up other options for you to choose from. And you choose the option that you like that fits into the salary pool, and it may free up some money in this salary number up here of the 50,000. The new salary is 48,000. You got 2,000 to play with the rest of your bats. You go down here and you pick these green arrows again, and you see who it doesn't like here. 5,500, say Kettle Marte. This would give me a bunch of options to swap in for him if I wanted to swap somebody for him. That's the basics of this tool. I really hope that helped Thunder, because that's how most of us use this tool to start. And then, of course, just so many individualized variations pop off of that. But that's the general gist of how you would stack using that optimizer. So hopefully it helped. Looks like we're going a little bit long. You want to cut her off here?
That's all right. Yeah, we've had over 100 in here today, which is awesome.
I like that. I've still seen about as high as 120. I want to see us get over that at some point. So tell your friends, tell your neighbors, thumbs up. The more comments that we do on the side there, awesome. Yes, keep messing. And Thunder, if you are a VIP in the Discord with access to those tools, make sure you're in that MLB lock or that MLB room, that MLB chat room prior to lock, hour to whatever your schedule allows, morning, midnight, somebody's in there. Make sure that you're asking questions about these tools, and they can help you even more and take more time with you because they're not under any kind of, show pressure or whatever you want to call it. And they can really hit me up, hit Darth up, whatever, tag us. We will work with you as much as we can to make sure that you get it right, because your success is our success, and you guys are the reason that we even have a job. So that is not lost on us. We truly, truly mean that. Well, for me, for Darth, for DFS Army, everybody else, we'll go ahead and we'll go build our lineups. And hopefully you guys picked up on some of those concepts today, and we'll be back again tomorrow with more. And we won't run as long tomorrow. It won't be quite as big a slate, won't be as much to talk about. But Darth and I had a couple of things. Darth talked with Juggernaut and really wanted to get that out to everybody, hoping Juggernaut heard it as well. And I think it was really, really beneficial. Good. I hope that was really beneficial to people as well, because like you said, as a teacher, ask the question because somebody else probably has the same question.
Yeah, and we don't mind going long like this. If you guys have questions, we are happy to do that. That's why we're here. For sure. But until tomorrow. Take care, everybody. Darth, always good to talk to you. And I will, I guess we'll talk to you guys. Are you with me tomorrow? All right. No, Tattoo is. Tattoo is back. All right. Yep. And then maybe I'll see you on Friday. Yes, you will. Perfect. Take care, everybody. We'll talk to you guys tomorrow and or Friday. See you. All right. Helmets up.